members, we're going to commence this meeting, and this meeting is from the Grange Council offices in Omagh and also via WebEx. And it's a special council meeting. We hold this annually. It's where our council meets with DFI roads in this format here. And so welcome everybody to the meeting, including those watching online. And just before I proceed, John, just explain to me the wee screen technical issue that we're having.
Thank you, Chair. Members, just for your information, in those members in the chamber, we have a number of large screens where you can normally see who's online on WebEx. So the screens in the chamber aren't working tonight, but WebEx is working normally. So all of those members who are joining online on WebEx can hear everything that's going on. They can see what's going on, and again, as far as you know, the meeting is streaming okay on YouTube. So there are no issues. But just in case you're wondering about the blank screens in the chamber, I said the chair can still see everybody that's on WebEx.
Okay, thank you. That was John Hughes, our Director for Environment and Place. Thank you, John. So we're going to proceed through the 5-point agenda now, members. And before I come to apologies, I just want to obviously welcome our DFI Roads team, our colleagues, Daniel, Connor and Brian. So Daniel being our Divisional Roads Manager, and we have respective section engineers present, so they can reintroduce themselves at the relevant point at point 3 in the agenda. But for now, I'm going to take apologies. So I'll either look to online to see if Councillor Coyle is present. If not, she is present.
I am, but I think I've frozen there.
Well, we can hear you, Debbie, if you want to.
That's okay.
Apologies.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I've got apologies from Councillor Colette McNulty, Councillor Seamus Green, Councillor Podrigan Kelly, and Councillor Nolene Hayes.
Okay, thank you. I move next then to the Ulster Unionist Party, Councillor Warrington.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not aware of any apologies. I'm not sure. I know there's a couple of our members in the chamber, but I'm not sure if there's any of the rest of them online. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, go now to Councillor Paul Robinson, DUP.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Buchanan, Councillor Magan, Councillor Thompson.
Okay, thank you. And in respect of the SDLP, I'll go to yourself, Bernard. Okay, I'll bring you into
here.
Yep.
Chair, thank you.
All here, both here. That's great. Thank you. Yourself in the chamber and Adam online, I think. Okay. And then Alliance Party. Okay. Councillor Roof might assist. Councillor Roof, is there any apologies from your group?
Not at the moment, Chair. I think Stephen might be on his way.
Right. Thanks very much. And then is Garvin here? Garvin's here. Very good. Josephine? No, not here. Okay, thank you. So, members, I'm inviting declarations of interest now if anybody wants to declare interests. I'm going to check in the chamber and then I'm going to check online as well. So there aren't any indications as I can see here. So with that, I'm going to move on. And we're now at item 3 in the agenda, which is the substantive part of the agenda. And that is to receive a presentation regarding the 2025 DFI Roads Western Division Annual Report. And you have a copy, members. And that copy was embargoed until 7 o'clock this evening. So I'll hand over now till perhaps Daniel Healy.
Is that on, Chair? When it goes red?
Okay, yep.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I'm delighted to be able to present DFI Roads Annual Report to Council and highlight some of the challenges and successes we've had over the last year. This is the 4th time I've had the opportunity to address this meeting, and many of the issues I touch on this evening will be familiar to those of you who have attended previous presentations. Similar to previous years, the main challenge we face in DFI when seeking to maintain and improve our road network is funding. This year's capital funding for structural maintenance, covering all divisions, is around £68 million. Capital funding allows the department to complete larger scale resurfacing schemes to significantly prolong the lifespan of our roads. This level of investment is welcome and helps towards the £190 million per year maintenance requirement to keep our roads in their current condition, recommended by the Barton report. While this level of funding is perhaps not what we in the department would hope for, there will be opportunities to bid for additional monies throughout the periodic monitoring rounds, and I'd like to assure councillors that we in Western Division will be bidding strongly for as much in-year funding as possible, which will be translated directly into improvements in our local roads infrastructure through additional resurfacing schemes over and above those indicated in this report. I can confirm that the department will continue to implement our limited service policy across our maintenance activities, which means that only the most severe defects are repaired. I know I've highlighted the effect that this approach has on the quality of our roads and the future maintenance burden that this may leave the department, but I would stress again that my teams are doing all they can to ensure that the network is managed in the most efficient and effective manner. The report itself details an extensive list of maintenance, network development, active travel, street lighting structure schemes, along with network planning statistics completed in the 24-25 year and programmed for the current 25-26 year. I'm not going to go through all of them in detail, but I will give a brief overview of the scale of the work completed in the last years. In 24-25 and major projects, you'll all be aware of the High Court ruling against the department in June 2025, which applied to the length of proposed new road between Strabane to Ballygawley. The department has lodged an appeal against this ruling, and this is scheduled to be heard tomorrow. Work continues in relation to addressing the Planning Appeals Commission recommendations on the new buildings to the south of Strabane and Ballygawley to the border sections. These will be subject to separate consultations and ministerial decisions in due course. The department also continues to work on the Enniskillen bypass with the tender process ongoing for the scheme. The department is currently considering the A5 judgment in relation to the scheme before moving to award. From a maintenance point of view, we completed 61 kilometres of roads resurfacing last year at a cost of £7.2 million. There was also 146 lane kilometres of surface dressing and 2.42 kilometres of footways resurfaced. There were also 109 drainage schemes at a cost of nearly £500,000, and around 23,700 road gullies were cleaned in 23-24, which equates to around 87% of our 35,000 gullies to ensure our roads remain safe and in passable condition. There was around 7,400 kilometres of verges cut and around 12,669 priority defects recorded, with 88% repaired within the required timeframes. There were 83 winter service call-outs, salting 920 kilometres of roads each evening on the gritting schedule, and there were over 900 notifications to excavate within the highway. From a network development perspective, and that deals with traffic management, road safety improvements and street lighting, we completed schemes to the value of £450,000, including the upgrading of traffic management systems on the Great Northern Road, widening existing road and for additional queuing capacity for traffic travelling from Strabane direction to the A32, and 4 traffic calming schemes. We also introduced a number of speed restrictions, warning signs, parking restrictions and bays. From an active travel perspective, we completed £250,000 worth of work, including on the main street in Kesh, where controlled crossing and footway provision, and 2 further footway schemes in Seskinore and Dromore. We also completed £342,000 worth of street lighting schemes, 17 of which, and £461,000 was invested in the upkeep of our structures across 30 schemes, varying from parapet repairs to masonry arch repairs and scour protection. There was also £38,000 invested in 4 vehicle restraint system repairs and upgrades. And from a network planning point of view, there were 870 planning consultations and 37 private streets adopted over the past year. In 25-26, there's planned, and in fairness, most of this is probably completed at this stage, 31.5 kilometres of roads planned for resurfacing at around £5 million. And this reflects the department's restricted budget in the current year. There was also 95.6 lane kilometres of road surface dressed. 1.15 kilometres of footways are planned to be resurfaced, and as per last year, a responsive set of drainage improvement projects at a cost of around £500,000. A single set of road gully cleansing with reactive cleansing within budgets will make sure that our gullies remain open, and of course this is the time of year where it's most significant storms and leaves cluttering those drains. So we're trying to get through them at least once. There's also been 2 grass cuts across most of the season, with additional cuts where safety issues are identified. And following a late change to our policy to encourage biodiversity on our roadside verges, a single cut was completed on some of our more rural, lower traffic roads, but they were reviewed to maintain safety. Defects are continuing to be repaired in accordance with the department's limited service policy. And generally speaking, that means defects over 50 millimetres will be repaired, and all defects over 20 millimetres on trunk roads will also be repaired. A normal winter service salting of our roads is scheduled as planned. We're also planning to deliver £368,000 worth of local transport safety measures, including schemes to upgrade signals, provision in Enniskillen, and a pedestrian crossing at St Joseph's Primary School. And it's part of the upgrade of Gorton Road widening. There are also 5 traffic calming schemes and also numerous changes to our speed limits and waiting restrictions and signs. From an active travel perspective, we're investing £340,000 in the district this financial year, and that includes footway cycleway measures at Irvinstown Road, Enniskillen, and a footway in Bow Island, Beleek, and design of a number of future schemes across the district. There's £300,000 invested in 17 street lighting schemes across the district, and £500,000 planned investment in the upkeep of our structures. There's also another £38,000 planned for 4 VRS upgrade projects. That completes my brief rundown, and I appreciate it was a whistle-stop tour, so I'll be happy to expand on any of the information I quickly mentioned. I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank members for their correspondence to the department over the past year. I appreciate that all requests to the department come from a wish to improve the lives of local people in their communities. My team and I share this aspiration. However, the service we provide is dictated by the resources available, and the sad truth is infrastructure, along with many other services, are operating in a challenging funding environment. That said, I will continue to make the strongest case possible for additional funding to be allocated to Western Division and ensure that we are in a position to put that funding to work on our roads, should it come through increased annual funding or through in-year allocations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Daniel. Thanks very much. Okay, so Daniel's available for questions, and he's accompanied by Brian Stewart and by Conor Granger, the section engineers. So I'll look to the on screen to see if there's any desire to speak. Councillor Gannon, I'm going to go to you first, and then Councillor McArdle.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Daniel, and the team. I appreciate you have limited resources, and you do what you can. And to be fair to you, you normally come back to myself pretty quickly, even if it's not the answer. I'm always looking. Just to welcome a few things. Obviously, the 20-mile-an-hour temporary speed limits. I know Devonish was a big one in Enniskillen there, and in particular, Ida Mary's a collector. That's obviously huge. So we've been talking about that for years in terms of how to reduce the speed there. And of course, high visibility signs at schools are welcome and look to be in progress there. Again, appreciate there's limited funding, but the roads generally are in a dreadful state, arguably the worst they've possibly ever been. And people are hitting potholes every day or dodging potholes, and it does lead to increased risk of accident. But again, you can only do Daniel, and you and the team can only do what you have the money for. So perhaps maybe that's a bigger question for ministers. But in terms of active travel, I wanted to touch on that. I know there's been struggles to spend the full active travel budget in terms of the entire north. There was reports of paths being resurfaced in Belfast under the guise of cycle paths with no actual facility for cyclists on said paths. There's a few that I just would really like to highlight at this stage. Belcoo to Holywell, there's bad need for a path out there, very dangerous. And people walking the road and no street lighting. I'm thinking for Darrell to get down to the football club, there's definitely to encourage active travel if we provide street lighting there, because people use the club for obviously all the young people going for football and people going for walking down there as well. And then between Ballinack and Army, there obviously that would be a bigger scheme, but something that's been asked for many times for kind of cycle path because the main population is a decent distance away from the community hubs. So those are a couple of things that I don't know if there's been any work on or consideration of. And finally, my other chair, well, maybe if I can get comment on those, but if my other point chair is on the Enniskillen Southern Bypass, where tender status, we were told work would begin in June. We're now 6 months later. I think it was in June anyway, originally. What's, I know you've said it's a tender process, but what's the reason for the delay there? Please, Daniel. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Gannon. Okay, maybe we'll accumulate a few of these first. Would it be a better idea, I think? So I'm going to go to Councillor McArdle next. Then I'm going to come back to the chamber and go to Rosemary, to Councillor Barton, and then it'll be Councillor Warrington and Robinson. Okay, so over to you, Declan.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening to everybody, and good evening to the team from DFI. First of all, I'd like to say to congratulate the DFI. Now, I've been in touch with probably Brian's probably the major contact I be in touch with on WhatsApp and stuff, and I have to say that anything I've asked of Brian has been done fairly sharply and professionally as well. So it's not all doom and gloom, lads. It's you're doing your best. You know, a few things I'd like to touch on, especially what Councillor Gannon has said there. I try to keep when I'm emailing people, especially the DFA. I try to email fellow councillors and MLAs and the Fermanagh South Road MP, Pat Cullen, all in the loop. You know, I'm working on the minutes for that footpath from the Pound Crossing Darlin to O'Connell Park, the GA Park down there, which is used by a lot of people, not only schools. It's used by the locals for walking and rock runners and stuff like that. So it's a hugely popular place, and they have a massive fundraising operation going on at the minute for next year to upgrade O'Connell Park and stuff. So it's going to be used widely more, and it's going to be more popular. You know, that's one thing. And another thing I'm working on is the footpath from St Neil's Church in Kinawley here up to the new graveyard at Shan Valley. But I'd say Brian and Daniel has got that in their email. The other thing, what I do, a big advocate for, and I'll keep banging and knocking the doors to see can we get any improvements on that, is it the A5 O'Neill from the Cherry Valley Road at Mackin there up to, used to be called Keenan's shop. It's Macquarie's shop there now. I know there was an accident on there about a fortnight ago, and maybe that was no disrespect to the roads or whatever, but we still don't know what has actually happened there. But it's just to bring that road up to a standard. It's lacking resurfacing. As you know yourselves, it's the main road from Dublin to Donegal. There's cement factories there. There's glass factories. There's umpteen industrial factories up around the Ballycullen and Timor border there. It's just for the look of things, safe travel for the locals on the road. And I've got more people ringing me and calling to the house that they are afraid. Locals are afraid now. Actually, go to the local shop, and it's a farming agricultural place as well. And when you hear that, and I know there's no funding for it, but if we could get it up to a safe standard that's suitable for everybody, it'd be very meaningful, you know. Look, as I say, we lost 2 lives in that stretch of road. I know funding is not great, but if we could do something that would bring it up to a standard that is suitable for everybody, and maybe that's something to think about in the future. But as I say, I appreciate the work you are doing at the minute, but I will keep harping and banging on the doors for that. But I'll let some of our fellow councillors in there, because I'm sure they have a lot more to say as well. Thank you very much, Chair, for allowing me in.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe we'll take those first 2 contributions and then seek a reply. Thank you, Daniel. So your mic's on again, Daniel.
Yeah, the active travel schemes that were mentioned there, I'm certainly aware that the Ballinelec is on the list of my active travel colleagues, and it has been assessed. So it will be prioritised along with all the other active travel applications that we have. The one thing I would say is that the active travel delivery plan, which was consulted on this year, is still being developed by the department. And I think there's a recognition at this stage from the feedback that we've had that there needs to be a focus on rural developments within that. the active travel delivery plan focused in on the consultation document, focused in on larger towns and cities. And there is a need to connect local hubs and nodes within rural communities. And I think that's been taken on board by our active travel colleagues, and hopefully that will be addressed. And that may leverage funding for some of those other schemes that you mentioned, such as accessing community centres or sports facilities. With regards to the roads being in a particularly poor state, I think I would probably agree with you that the roads are probably deteriorating, and I think that's reflective of the funding we've received over the last number of years. As I mentioned in my opening statement, the Barton report indicates that the department requires £190 million a year to keep the roads in their current condition. Unfortunately, in my entire time in DFI roads, we haven't managed to achieve that. Certainly, we would bid for it as much as we could take. But even if we did receive that money now, I would just caution, we're currently sitting with around 20% vacancies, and we would struggle to deliver that volume of work if suddenly the taps were turned on. So we'll deliver as much as we possibly can. We haven't come to the point where we've received more money than we could spend. In Western Division, we've always been very active in bidding for additional monies to improve our road network here. And I think that's probably reflected in the opening allocations versus the amount of spend, if you look back through the council reports. So we'll certainly do what we can to bid for as much as we can to make our roads in Manor and Omer and all divisions, all council areas here in Western Division as best as we can make them. It was mentioned the A509 there as well. And after that tragic accident that happened, or the collision that happened last week, we do have a meeting scheduled with the PSNI to discuss the causation factors for that particular incident. And we're also already planned and programmed to have white lining renewed along the A509 for later this year when weather conditions allow. The original scheme that was proposed at that crossroads, it actually moves from that crossroads and down towards the Bad Bend, towards the shop, to address a number of accidents that have happened historically on that bend. So it was a road realignment initially. But considering the collision data and the tragic recent accident, we'll certainly be looking into potentially modifying the crossroads when we do have an opportunity to carry out that work. I think, were there any others that councillors would like me to address?
In that round of questions, maybe come back later, Daniel.
Okay.
And we'll progress now to Councillor Barton.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just say thank you very much for the work that you have completed over the past 18 months or so in Erne North in respect to, well, a number of them, in respect to the work you carried out in Kesh, the footpaths in Kesh, which I've been lobbying for the past 6, 7, 8 years, and also the work that's done in Lack of Recent in relation to the resurfacing of the village. That's very welcome, and thank you for that. A few weeks ago, I didn't meet with Brian, but Brian and I discussed a couple of the issues or a number of the issues in Erne North, but I have a couple of more I want to just bring to your attention, and that is in relation to the B4 Drumlish Road. While it's out of Erne North, it's used by a lot of Erne North people going to Oma. At Grennan Hall, there have been a number of lorries have come off the road there over the past number of months. The road narrows, and if I'm sure most of you are aware of it, it's over a bog and it's wavy, and there's lorries off, there's cars off it also. I'm wondering, I actually brought it to Conor Lochry's attention, so you know how long it's on the go then. So can that be looked at, and maybe something considered sometime in the nearer future rather than the future, please. So I would like some details on that, perhaps, when you're thinking of doing something. In relation to the A32, I'd like an update on the A32. And can I ask, the A5, I know there've been difficulties with the A5. Can some of that money that is scheduled for the A5, can that not be transferred? Maybe that's the simplistic way of putting it, but transferred and perhaps used on the A32 to try and get a move on. After all, the hospital is 10, 15 years old now, and that was to be completed that time, or it was thought it would be sorted out that time, and it hasn't been. In relation to, again, you mentioned white lines. You talked about white lines on the A509. I'd like a programme of white lines throughout Fermanagh. Really, the centre of the lines, the stop sign, where there are roads, honestly, there's no lining in relation to stop at all. And indeed, in some places in the rural areas, the stop sign isn't there, or has been removed or knocked down or whatever. So I would like just a total programme of white line there. And also cat's eyes. There seems to be a dearth of cat's eyes at the moment being put back in roads, especially roads that have been resurfaced. You said you had limited service in relation to you're only going to deal with the most severe defects will be repaired. Well, on the radio the other morning, you talked about this new mapping project, which will survey every inch of Northern Ireland in detail. I'm quoting. GAIT, or GAIST, whatever you call it, is a company carrying out the survey. Will this you will have it says it will make a vast difference in making repairs and maintenance more efficient. So therefore, that would suggest that if this is used, that you'll be fit to spend much more time and have many more potholes filled in, etc. So could you comment on that? And one other thing, dirty signs. There's lots and lots of dirty signs now. That doesn't take a lot of money to wash signs and make them more legible, especially if there's no white line. And at least let's have our signs that we can read them. And also, I'm not sure if you give a report on the southern distribution in Enniskillen. You mentioned I think Adam mentioned it. If you could give me an update on that, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. I'll take one more contributor at this stage. I'll go to Councillor Warrington online.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Well, basically, some of the stuff has been covered that I have taken notes on here. Obviously, Adam mentioned the Enniskillen bypass, which we as councillors were under the understanding that the budget for it was to progress the work was ring fenced, and struggling maybe to see why the A5 is holding it up. Gully cleaning, you've mentioned. Certainly the last storm that we had, Storm Amy, gully cleaning became very evident, or should I say the lack of it became very evident in certain areas in Earn East. Certainly one road that I'm thinking of, up outside Roslay, it was certainly it was the lack of a gully cleaning that left it impossible for probably half a day before the water subsided. Rosemary has mentioned white lines. White lines is a major problem. I had constituents contacted me fairly recently about white lines in the Brookbury area at a crossroads where the priorities had changed maybe 2 or 3 years ago, but people were still coming through that crossroads as if they had the right of way. And certainly I had one constituent who came on to me who said they had a very close call um, avoiding an accident. So, I put that through as a matter of urgency. That's gone back to the early summer, and there's no doubt if that was an urgent request, the non-urgent ones are obviously going to take so much longer. That was certainly a priority. Councillor, sorry, I'm having a brain freeze here on names. Mentioned the road accident in his DAA. Well, obviously we had a very serious road accident on the Crum Road over the weekend, and I appreciate that there was some work done on that road following the very sad fatality a year ago. But it's obvious that it hasn't solved the problem there, and certainly talking to residents in that area over the weekend, it is still they still see it as a major problem. They're saying basically that the junction needs to be staggered because there is vehicles coming down at quite a speed and not really stopping at the junction where they should be stopping. Things like signs being cleaned has been mentioned. We're
I have
all,
to ask you to come to a close, Victor. I know you'll appreciate that.
well, with respect, Chair, I don't think I've been as long as some of my other colleagues thus far.
It'd be well worth reviewing because you've been speaking for a significant amount of time, and if you don't conclude now, I will have to make a ruling. I don't want to do that, but I'm told.
Well,
by-
you
they stand.
look,
Okay, I'm
Chair,
going to move on from you.
you've made a
I'm going to move
ruling.
on from you now.
You've said
Because
it.
you challenged the chair, I'm going to move on.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. I'm going
Shows
to
the
move on.
fairness, Barry.
No, Victor, I have to say, I'm given the job to chair a meeting. If people speak ad nauseum, I must call the rules into question. I've done that. You know fine well, you're very, very experienced, that the chair's ruling is not up for challenge in the matter. So I'm going to move on.
I
Thank
didn't
you.
challenge it.
Okay, Daniel, can you please reply to the councillors who have spoken?
Thank you, councillors. With regards to the B4, it's not one that it's come across my desk yet, Rosemary. I'm more than happy to raise it with my colleagues. Is it to remove the rolling of it, or is it to address the accidents? Right.
Yep. Okay.
It's also Bogland. And Brian, I'm sure, is familiar. I know it's not your area, Brian, but you're familiar with the road.
It's unfortunately, with the funding that we receive, we need to allocate it to those roads that are, as you know, in poor condition and highly trafficked to affect as many road users as possible. That's not to say that the road recovery fund doesn't get allocated to those more rural roads that are lower trafficked, but we can certainly inspect it again and see where it falls within
the roads at it also.
Okay.
So there is, which is.
Please speak about it later.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
With regards to the A32, in June this year, Minister Kimmins announced that the scheme was to progress to procurement and construction, the Cornamuck section. The current projected procurement for that is 2030 because it's not currently funded. So, and the remaining sections priority will be influenced by the emerging transport plans that are due to be published next year. So there will be hopefully if they're still on the list, which I hope they will be, speaking personally, then we'll have an idea of when they'll be looking to be delivered amongst all our other major projects. With regards to the Enniskillen bypass, the procurement process is pretty much completed, very close. Before we can award, we need to consider the potential impact of the A5 judgment on the procurement before we award the tender. It's currently subject to the judicial review, which starts tomorrow. And you'll understand that with that judicial review so close, I'm a little bit reluctant to make any forecasts about when and how we'll be progressing that scheme. It's another one that I would be hopeful that a little bit of clarity provided by how the review is going will allow us to make a decision on that one. You mentioned the A5 monies and whether they could be transferred to other road projects. With any department, if their budget against a specific major project isn't spent, then generally that is handed back centrally and we have to bid again. And quite often we find if there is a significant amount of money given back, other departments like education or health, they also have very strong bids for capital monies. So we'll certainly bid for it. I can't say whether we'll get it or not. We do have a monitoring round coming up, so I'm hopeful we will get some additional monies as part of that. With regards to the limited service and the new mapping that's going to be that has been rolled out, that's due to be completed in my understanding in March, April of next year. That'll certainly give us a very clear indication of the condition of our roads and allow us to identify those areas that require repair and remedial measures. Unfortunately, what it doesn't do is give us the money to do it all. But as was said on the news, I was listening to that myself and I've been aware of it as part of the maintenance strategy that's being developed by the department. It is going to provide a wealth of information that will help our decision making and make it a lot more transparent why and where we're spending our money. With regards to the dirty signs, cleaning of signs isn't actually included in our limited service policy. However, if there's a health and safety issue, then we will have gone out in the past to clean them. This year, fortunately, because of the resource settlement that we received, we did have some additional monies and those monies were allocated to cleaning signs. So there should have been a number of signs across the district that were cleaned this year that wouldn't have been cleaned in past years. I'd be hopeful again that we would continue to get that money in the next financial year and we'll get around the ones that we may have missed this year. Gully cleaning, there was a specific instance mentioned with regards to gully cleaning in Rosslea. Is that one that yours?
It was just muck. Bring in the brain.
So it has been, that gully has been cleaned out as part of our works, probably in response to the recent flooding, but it will have been on a schedule. The white lines over the past year or so, we have had our challenges in mobilising our external contractor to carry out white lines across the district. And earlier this year, we awarded a new white lining contract to a different contractor. And that has resulted in a significant schedule of works that we've handed over and they're working their way through that as we speak. Unfortunately, we're not in the time of year where laying white lines is particularly useful or good, unfortunately. So when we do get some warmer and drier weather, they'll be back out hitting the roads fairly hard again. The Crom Road, the junction stagger request, we're more than happy to look at that. Obviously, our local transport safety measures programme has a lot of schemes on it that we don't have the funding to achieve, so we have to prioritise those ones that are the most severe defects or the most highly recognised safety issues at them, and they're assessed by our engineers against a set of criteria. We can certainly have a look at it, and if it ranks highly enough, then hopefully we'll get round to it. But the aspiration would obviously be to get through all of these requests, especially the ones that have a health and safety impact on road users. So I can given undertaking to take a look at that, the Crom Road.
Are there any issues unreplied to? I'll ask both Rosemary and Victor. Was there any of your questions not answered there, or were all of them dealt with? Rosemary, Victor, we're all you okay? I'll bring you in then, Rosemary.
Yeah. You know, it's just one thing. It's a bit ironic, this all with all due respect to Daniel, that it's a bit ironic that the DFI would have this new system, new mapping system, but yet not have the money to finance what it finds or the defects it finds. It's a bit ironic, that.
Okay, and a wrap-up comment from
Thank you.
Victor on your
No,
issues
happy enough.
raised. Happy enough, thank you.
Any future correspondence, I'll email it through.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Can
now
Chair,
councillors.
can I
Okay, Daniel, go
quickly,
ahead.
Rosemary, thank you for that. What I would say is it will make our ability to bid for additional funding easier. So hopefully the two will run in parallel, hopefully.
Okay, now councillors, I want to be fair to you all here, and I'm going to list an order that I have of speakers. You've either indicated online or you have indicated in the chamber. So here's the order of speakers. Councillor Robinson, followed by Councillor Feely, followed by Councillor Rainey, then Councillor Roof, then Councillor Bruff, then Councillor Brown, then Councillor McGrath, then Councillor O'Reilly, and then Councillor Coyle. Okay? That's what we're going to do. So go to you now, Paul, Councillor Robinson. I'll just check again if Paul's in a position to speak at this time. Councillor Robinson, if not, I'll move back to the chamber and I'll take Councillor Feely, Anthony Feely.
Thank you, Chair, and I'll be brief. That's quite a list of people that wants to talk then. There's no point us all repeating ourselves and some of the question I was going to ask. Rosemary has brought it up. I just want to make a comment or two. Yeah, and I know Daniel and Brian, you're doing your best with tight budgets then and small money. And try and get as much as you can. I know you're doing your best. And I want to thank you for coming out. Some of your members was out meeting me on site in Garrison on a couple of occasions last year, so I want to thank you for that as well. It's that, as I said, from Garrison, one of the rural councillors, you know, and the rural roads are pretty bad, as some of the councillors said earlier on there. And the potholes, I know there's not as much traffic on it, and that's what we'd be told. But when somebody contacts you and you say that there has to be so many cars using it per day to get it fixed fairly quickly, it doesn't go down well with them, and they'll just say to you, like, I'm paying my car tax like the people that's living on a busy road, you know, and then we've no gritting going on either, so that is another touchy subject, but that's not your fault, so I just wanted to mention that, you know. And I brought some of this up with Brian already at the DFI meetings about want to resurface some of them main roads down our way, like the Bralla Road and especially the Latoon Road from Bellicue to Garrison is pretty bad at the minute, and you showed me maybe next year, Brian, it might be done. So hopefully that some of the main roads be done anyway, because the roads are very bad down there at the minute. Well, it's just two questions I wanted to ask there about street lighting. Is still replacing putting LED lights in all the street lights? Is that near complete now? And somebody was telling me there's no more lights going up. Is that right? Because there's somebody looking to get on a footpath lights extended another wee bit, another 2 or 3 poles. I was just wondering, is that the case? So will they extend that? And the other question I had, I was just down here, is, oh yes, and Rosemary did mention about the white lining, and I know there was a problem with contacts before. So this new contract, is things going better with the white lining, and I'm hoping to do all the white lines in the area and all the junctions and all the crossroads eventually to be all done for they are pretty bad, and that's just a couple of points I wanted to make. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, and I'll come now till Councillor Rainey. So I'll bring Councillor Rainey into play in the chamber.
Thank you, Chair, and welcome, and thank you, gentlemen, for coming along here to bring us the up-to-date report. I suppose at the outset, most of my complaints are all in and around the A5 and work that has been done, and it's just sitting in abeyance and people not knowing where they're going or what they're doing. Some people taking it into their own hands to demolish the fencing and even remove some of the hardcore and all the rest of it. You know, it's an unsatisfactory system. Could I ask if and when tomorrow's resolution is filtered down, will people be instructed as to how, when, where, and why? You know, what the way forward is. I don't really hold out much hope for a miracle, and it'll be a miracle really if it does get the go ahead tomorrow or over the next few days. I hope it does, but there you are.
Okay, thanks, Alan.
Just a minute now, Chairman, and I want to say thank you. And I done that at the DEA for the grass cutting that was done on the A5. It was really well done. I want to say thank you for the grit piles that have already been put out around the country. That's all good planning, and it deserves a mention. And the work that has been done on the existing A5 on the Cur Road and at Ranelli, those two areas, you know, it was really it was really necessary to have those few bits. We would like more done, but thankful for what we have got done. And as things crop up, don't worry, I'll be on the knocker to ask for things that are of an emergency until things improve. And thank you.
Okay, so we've had two councillors there. We had Councillor Feely and Councillor Rennie. Over to you, Daniel.
Thank you, Chair. The rural roads response, you are correct in that the lower traffic roads, for the same 50 mil, we do have as part of our procedures slightly longer to address them. But I would go back to the stats that I gave a little earlier. The 88% of our defects that were highlighted, we're getting around to them in line with our process, and I accept that there's room for improvement there, and occasionally we will miss the odd one. So I accept that as well. But our guys they're not doing. I'd like to commend them myself for the work that they're carrying out. But it's a fair comment. The resurfacing, the LED street lighting. The plan is still to roll out LED street lights to all street lighting columns. There are still the sodium bulbs. The funding, unfortunately, this year has not allowed us to continue that program yet, but the aspiration is to get it out there because overall it'll be a cost saving to the department from energy use, a significant one. With regards to new streetlights, generally the only new streetlights that we add to the adopted network are ones that are a part of new developments. The extension of existing streetlights would need to be exceptional circumstances at the moment for us to do so, unfortunately. The white lining is the contractor has been performing satisfactorily since it was put together, or the new award. With regards to the A5, there will be a very clear set of steps what the next part of the process will be following the judgment of the appeal. My understanding at the moment is that the appeal will run for a number of days, and then the judgment will follow a number of months after that. So the actual judgment and the outcome and the fallout from it will not be for a number of months yet.
Springtime.
Mm-hmm. There are plans to carry out additional road safety works, such as improving skid resistance, like resurfacing, white lining, junction modifications, and also the consideration of speed limits on the existing A5 to help improve safety for road users.
Yeah.
So that is being currently considered.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
Think I covered most of them there.
Okay,
Chairman,
okay.
just one small item.
Adult.
The Letfern Road. The Letfern Road. That's between Seskinore and the Funtner Road. There's a culvert has raised the road up. You could practice a pony jumping over it, you know, as that. You wouldn't believe it that I'm not really against it. If there could be a sign, but then bump ahead, you know, because the speed on them roads is unbelievable. But the condition at the minute is almost, you know,
I assume that's noted then by Connor. Connor will have noted that. Thank you. Now we're moving on, and we're going to go to Councillor Roof, followed by Councillor Brough. So Eddie first, and then Elaine.
Thanks, Chair, and just thanks to everyone that has attended for the meeting. Really appreciate you doing this every year. I try to bother you as little as possible each year because I really appreciate how much you've got to do and the limits to your funding on that. The first thing I say is just glad about the decision on the 20 mile an hour area outside Danvers College. I think that was a bit overdue. I'm glad we finally got there. There's a couple of issues to note in a skill in particular. Traffic management, particularly at the weekends. As the Tesco traffic, the lights often end up in gridlock. Quite often there's not much you can do about that with just the sheer volume of traffic. But the addition of the retail park now, have there been any plans drawn up to assess the effects on traffic in the town, or any plans to reconfigure traffic lights around that area, or the Asda Tesco area to try and alleviate some of the traffic management issues? And then secondly, on the new retail park as well, just exiting from the junction at the brow of the hill on the Corner Gate Road, it is a recipe for disaster at the minute. I think I've been approached by a couple of different people who had near misses. People are coming up the hill not expecting people to be out in the middle of the road crossing with their cars. So it's been a couple of close calls recently. I know as locals we'll know probably just to maybe come in that way and out the Urbanstown Road entrance, but for, you know, when you go in there, probably a third or more of the people there are from the south and just don't know the roads, and it's probably going to cause a crash at some point. So could there be a review of that junction as well as to whether it's appropriate for traffic lights to be introduced onto that junction and how that would affect the rest of the area? But I'm just a bit concerned that at some point, just because where the speed limits are and stuff on that road come up the hill from the Urbanstown side, I just think at some point we're going to end up with a side-on collision, and it could be some bad news. So I'll leave it at that. I'm trying to keep it as short as possible for you. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. Daniel and Brian, I'd like to thank you for attending a meeting with me along with others for a meeting in Belcoo recently regarding issues raised around footpaths, road safety, line marking, speeding, etc. So I'd like to thank you for meeting me for that. Just Saturday past, another accident occurred on the Enniskillen Bar Road, but thankfully nobody was hurt. Having documented, reported online, the road issues from Derrylane Cross to Lisnaskea, Enniskillen to Dublin Road, Station Road, the 5 Points, Florence Court, to name a few, what timescales is there in place to having these issues started or completed? There's a lot of potholes, especially the Derrylane Cross to Lisnaskea Road, some very deep, they're not even marked. And there's a lot of ponding as well on the roads due to the amount of rainfall, which we are receiving a lot of. And lastly, I was just wondering, could I get an update via email at your convenience regarding the issues I've reported on to date, please? Thank you.
The traffic management or the lights at weekends at Tesco's there, we can have a look at the timings of those lights, and I'll ask my network development colleagues to take a look and see if there's any way to ease the movement of traffic if the flows are different from weekdays. The congestion in Enniskillen as a whole and transportation projects or future transportation projects will be highlighted as part of the upcoming transportation or transport plans that the department is developing. There's a specific one for Manor. The retail park exit on the Corner Guard Road, that has been, my understanding is that they have submitted an updated design for that access and that changes are to be carried out. But I can certainly check that. With regards to the timescales for I think it was for the repair of potholes on those roads that you mentioned, Councillor. They're certainly, those roads are monthly inspected. Yeah. So if there are potholes on those roads, then they'll be picked up on a monthly basis by our inspectors. But if there are any that are a safety issue, we will go out and carry out a temporary repair on those if there is a safety issue on them. So if they're reported via the online or contacting.
The monthly inspection on them roads.
Yeah.
So you should see it now over the next week or so that they're picked up.
Thank you.
And I'm gathering up the information that you were looking as well at the moment. And as soon as I get it all, I'll send it out to you.
Lovely. Thanks, Brian. Thank you.
Councillor Roof and Councillor Bruff, their issues have been addressed. I'll go now to Councillor Dermot Brown and then Councillor Bernard McGrath. Dermot.
Thank you, Chair, and just again thank the team for coming in to us tonight there. I suppose I want to just first of all recognise and say thank you to the very good work which was done on the Temple Road in Enniskillen. A significant amount of resurfacing took place there over the summer, which much improved a very, very badly road. It was a bad road there, and it was good job on that one. And there was a bit of a discussion there about white lines, and I just want to raise that there is a significant section of that road up past Garvery which has not yet been got white lines on it, and that's now coming up to 4 months, I think. So just to flag that one. But my question is around active travel. So I know that there was I was lobbying for an active travel scheme on the edge of Enniskillen around the Drumkeen and the Capog Road area for a footpath. And I was told at that time that the department was going to be updating its active travel design guidance, and that would potentially open up even more opportunities for active travel. And I just want to ask, can you give a wee bit of an update on where that is and how significant of a review will that be, and what are the outcomes going to be? Because there are a lot of schemes in Enniskillen and other places which have merit, but there seems to be a restriction on getting some of them over the line because of the design guidance or some such formula. So if you could maybe give us a wee bit of an update on that if you can. And that's it for me, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Dermot. And Councillor McGrath.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Daniel and Brian. And I just want to especially thank Connor because he's my go-to man and he's done a lot for me over this past couple of years. I suppose my big issue that I would have mostly would be at the top of the Gorchin lanes. I believe that there's an accident just waiting to happen with there's a big drop on one side, and I believe that there has to be a safety barrier put there. It's just an accident waiting to happen. And the road is the main route from Oma to Gorchin, and there's been a lot of incidents lately there seems to be a lot of deer on the road now compared to what there used to be. I don't know what that reason is, and people that are not really aware of the road, I'm just thinking, down the line, if there, car meets deer on the road, and then, there's a possibility if you don't know the road. But I kind of thinking if there was a crash barrier put there, it would help the situation. And last week, this time last week, the A5 was closed all day due to an accident over at the Mellon Country Inn, and traffic was diverted onto small roads like the Carrigan's Road, Taddinure, Kiernan Road, and them roads aren't really fit for the amount of traffic that was on that road. It was the whole day. 40 footers were coming down that Carrigan's Road. And it was an absolute car crash, it was terrible, like, and 40 footers meeting and not being able to get past. And yeah, I'm glad to hear about the white lines being sorted out. I'm just thinking for learner drivers that are trying to negotiate boxes around Oma, how do they expect to pass the driving test if there's no white lines there? It's not fair on them,
And finally, Bernard,
Farmhill Road, that extra lane, Connor, just pushing for that, because there's a lot of traffic issues there on that Farmhill Road, just to ease that congestion a wee bit, and then just lights are still off at Coronation Cottages, just if that could be sorted as well.
okay, thank you. Thanks, Bernard. So then maybe in a composite way, if you could reply, Daniel, till Councillor Brown and Councillor McGrath, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Temple Road white lines and the white lines in and around the town are obviously our schedule at the minute is tackling all the worst affected areas or the lines that are most deteriorated and any safety issues. I can assure you we will get to those white lines, but we need to do it on a priority basis. With regards to the active travel design guidance, the design guidance, as far as I'm aware, I'd need to check with my active travel colleagues, but the design guidance hasn't been published yet because it's reliant on the outcomes or the outworkings of the active travel delivery plan, and that'll influence the design guidance. So that's due for publication later in 2026. With regards to the closure of the A5, Conor, you wanted to?
Yeah, the closure of the A5, whenever an accident happens on the A5, it could be several hours before we actually get notified and get out to set up the appropriate road closures. So in meantimes, traffic just take whatever route they feel that they'll take, they follow their sat navs. Whenever we do get out to site, we do not direct traffic down to a minor road. We keep them on an A-class road or as suitable as we can. But the road close signs aren't adhered to, or directional signs. People still follow their sat navs and think they're taking rat races. So we never direct traffic down on classified roads. We don't.
With regards to the Gorton Glens, the road there, we can certainly have our network development team or structures team assess it for the construction of a VRS or a vehicle restraint system.
Yeah, no, we spoke of this before. The problem on the Gorton Glens is there is no verge on the Gorton Glens. It is just a drop off the cliff. It will be major works. You would really have to realign the road, which is major works, and that is the problem there. But we spoke of this at the DA meetings with Tracy in traffic section. It's not a simple solution of just erecting a VRS barrier. There's major works involved to erect that crush barrier, unfortunately.
I would say though that if it ranks high enough in the priority system, that we would bid for it. Our aim is always to tackle those areas that have the highest safety risk to the travelling public. So if it ranks highly enough from the assessment that it sounds like it has already been carried out, then there's a design element. We can bid for the design in 1 year and then bid for the funding in the following year. It's not to say that we'll receive it, especially if it's a large amount, but when safety is involved, we generally tend to knock off 1 or 2 of our priority schemes per year if we can. Mm-hmm.
So Thomas is over to you now. Thomas O'Reilly, Councillor O'Reilly.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming in and speaking with us this evening. I appreciate budgets are restricted, and we've hit that all night. First of all, can I thank Brian and whoever was involved in the provision of the drop curb outside the community centre in Newton Butler. Very, very much appreciated. On the 31st of July at midnight, the White Line unit arrived to Newton after an accident the previous week and painted, put the white lines on the mini roundabout in the centre of town, and then disappeared as quickly thereafter, not even joining the white lines from the roundabout to the existing ones on Bridge Street. Would it have made any sense at all to have done a little more when the unit was in Newton on that night, being able to do? Second point is really, Daniel, the other day I was driving out the Wattle Bridge Road and lo and behold came across the spray tar machine and men spraying tar into water-filled holes. And it wasn't even rolled in or anything else, sprayed it there and just drove on in the water. I'm just wondering the how that sort of works as a process. Flooding on Maravili, the main street in Maravili village, and the gullies not being emptied there, and blocked gullies of some description, if something can be looked at there. The realigned road at the new health centre in Lisnaskea is left in a very, very rough state with a manhole protruding up. Is there any sense of when that might be surface coated? The main street in Newton Butler, and Brian, a couple of years ago, were out and had a look at it and said that hopefully something could be done alongside the flooding on Bridge Street in Newton Butler is still crying out for that work that was badly needed 2 years ago. And Chair, this survey that I requested the 20th of June outside of St. Kevin's on the Brookborough Road out of Lisnaskea, never heard any results or any feedback out of that. It'd be very much appreciated if I could get some results back out of that. I did emphasize to Andrew that doing it in the middle of the summer when there was no kids around and no cars obviously moving up and down didn't paint a full picture, but I don't know if that survey was done, completed or anything else. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And just to ask councillors who may have spoken, if their hands are up in error, just to take them down. Thank you. And so that was Councillor O'Reilly. And I'll just go to my list here. Councillor Coyle.
Thanks, Chair. I kept my hand up just to really say thank you because, and I'm not going to repeat anything. I was going to mention the road outside the health centre as well because I would often be driving through Lisnaskea. It's terrible, and most people just going, not following the road at all because of the thing raised up in the road and the temper. I was going to mention temper road, but so I just want to say thanks to the guy. I know it's not easy, and I know there's a short of funding, but I mentioned in my own local North DEA meeting, and me and Rosemary, you know, brought up loads of stuff there around the dirty signs and white lines and all of that. And that's 100% because, you know, I find it very difficult driving at night when you can't see any white lines on the road, you know, and it's just, I don't think it's that safe. But I did say at that meeting as well, you know, sometimes we come to these meetings, it's the same kind of thing all the time. And I know, you know, the department, whoever the guys there, you know, I know you'd want more money and all that sort of stuff, but you know, we can't always have that. So, you know, what I mentioned at the DEA meeting was, you know, sometimes you have to sit down and think outside the box, you know, stop doing things the way they're being done. and do things a little bit differently. For example, Thomas just gave a really good example. He white lines on a roundabout and then disappeared, knowing that some more are needed down the line. I mean, it's only a little bit of extra paint. You've got the workers there, so for an extra hour's pay, they could have probably got quite a lot more done. And, it's just because we do come and we complain to you about the same, very similar things every single year. Bushes, making
Debbie.
safe. And so that's it. But thanks anyway. Cheers.
Thank you very much, Councillor Coyle. So if Daniel can respond to Thomas and Debbie, please.
Yeah, just with regards to the white lining, and this touches upon the maintenance strategy in general. I can appreciate there's a lot of frustration, not just with when you see a white liner go out and carry out isolated works, but when potholes are filled and the next pothole 5 meters down the road that isn't quite as big is left. And the department understands that frustration, and it's formed part of the reasoning behind why we have initiated a maintenance strategy review. So it's looking at things like, do we reduce the number of inspections we carry out on our main roads and just carry out inspections, for example, every 2 months on all roads? And when we come to carry out repairs, we take the road as a whole. While that has advantages in that everything on that road is tackled, you'll find that a lot of roads we won't get around a lot of roads that we would get around under the current strategy. So there are pros and cons in each of them, but we are actively looking at changing how we carry out our maintenance work to try and make sure that we're doing it as efficiently as possible, but also that the public sees it and councillors see it as a reasonable and thoughtful way about how we go about carrying out repairs and maintenance of our carriageways. Brian, did you want to mention something specifically for the roundabout there?
Yeah, just with regard to the roundabout in Newton Butler, that was completed following the accident. The squad that was doing it was actually coming home from night work, working down in Cavan, and I had convinced them to stop and do this as it's a main through road from Lisnaskey down to Wattle Bridge. The remainder of the work will be completed, but at that moment in time, that was the highest priority. They did what they did, and they were going back to Marrafelt, so they had a right run ahead of them, and that's probably why they didn't stay on to do the rest of it.
Thank you. With regards to the velocity patcher, which is the spray patcher that was mentioned, there is a very clear process for using that piece of equipment, and water lying in the pothole certainly doesn't form part of it. So if that was the case, that's something that we're going to have a chat with our contractors about. It is an effective piece of equipment for carrying out pothole repairs under the correct conditions, but at this time of year and the conditions that you're talking about, it's probably not the most effective. It might be useful for a temporary repair, but not for a more long-term repair. With regards to block gullies in Valley Village, if it hasn't been done already, then it'll be on our schedule to be cleaned out. And unfortunately, with tens of thousands of gullies, we can't get around all of them in the period that we would like to. So there's always going to be a few that in some areas that we only get around to later on in the season. And you'll probably find that if we did get them around them all in the summer, then leaves and detritus would block them again at this time of year as a lot of water carries it into the gullies. So we'll certainly do our best to get around as many as we can. And if there are any localized areas of flooding, please let us know and we'll try and get a unit out to them as soon as we can. I can certainly speak to my traffic colleagues with regards getting the results of the survey at St. Kevin's and get back to you on that one, Councillor.
Thank you.
Okay, so everyone, or yourself now, Brian?
Just with regards to the health centre at Lisnaskey as well, that wee bit of work on the right turn lane's actually been completed by the contractor that's carrying work out for the health centre. We were working with them to have the traffic management removed as quick as possible. And as much as the manhole lids are there in the carriageway, we'll be working with them over the next couple of months to have more work carried out and the road opened, I suppose, more effectively for the public travelling on it.
Okay.
Thank you.
I go now to Councillor Little, followed by Councillor Kelly, and then after that it'll be Councillor Rushing Devine Gallagher, and then Councillor McColgan. So, Councillor Little.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to David, Connor and Brian for your presentation and for coming here tonight and addressing everybody's concerns. I know you're very busy and you're working obviously under pressure as well, so we're grateful for your time. I have an issue I wanted to raise. I flagged it on the 19th of November. And I know that's not a significant time, it's a short while, but the reason why I'm bringing it up is it's causing a lot of anxiety in the community in Rooskey. Basically, in the stretch of road, the Crackenby Road between the turnoff for Drumley and the turnoff for Camcozy, between Gorton and Rooskey, there's a serious, seems to be, issue with surface water with any bit of rainfall. I went out and seen it myself, and I met with the locals, and I looked at two gullies on the left-hand side of the road. One of them's covered with vegetation, and the other is blocked with silt and debris. And we were hoping that if we got that cleaned out, that it may alleviate the problem, the pressures on the road with the surface water. I think the fear and the anxiety is that coming into the winter months now, people who don't know the road, the water freezes. There's the potential for serious accidents. I mean, I've been inundated with calls and messages from concerned locals and residents. And I just really wanted to stress the importance of it. I know it's only been a couple of, maybe less than 2 weeks since I raised it, so I'm certainly not complaining about the response time. It's more so just trying to sort of stress the importance of it for the people who live there. And if we could get a team out to look at it as soon as possible, I think the residents in that area would really appreciate it.
Thank you. And then we'll go now to Councillor Kelly. Bring Catherine into play.
Thank you for the report, and thanks to you and the team for all of your help this year. I would like to welcome the resurfacing works planned for Killyclogher Village. That's something the local people have been hoping for some time. Can I ask if there might be a provisional date for works to begin?
Okay, so we'll go now to Daniel.
Thank you, Chair. We'll certainly get a team and inspectorate to have a look at those gullies and hopefully get the gully cleaner mobilised in the coming days or weeks. With regards to the start date at Killyclogher Village.
Connor, there you are.
Yes, Catherine. Yes, we're aiming around the start of February time. Hopefully we'll get to there. I have a lot of discussion to have with NI Water as well on that lane because I know there's been a few bursts in that road going up the Turquoise Road. I just want to chat to them, see are they happy enough or they want to do any maintenance works before we get in there. So in discussions with NI Water for their works in the period if they can do anything. But around the start of February time we should be in there. Okay.
Okay, thanks. Those are good, pertinent questions, good, precise questions, good answers. Okay, so we'll go now till Councillor Devine Gallagher.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to everybody. I'd be sure that you're already aware of this problem, but I was just looking more of an update on the Barony Road. There just before the Seven Sisters, the corner. A lot of the barriers have been taken down and there's been quite a few accidents in the last 5 months. So I was just wondering when those arrows will be put up again, and just wondering if you had any information regarding the volume of accidents on that corner in the last 5 months, please, and thank you.
Okay, thanks, Rushing. And then we'll go now to Councillor McColgan.
Thank you, Chair, and again thank Daniel and the team for the presentation tonight. And there's been a lot of ground covered so far. I'm not going to rehash any of that, and quite a few questions have already been answered. So Just looking at one of the things was the resurfacing of remaining network locations, and there's quite a lot of streets and cul-de-sacs and that, and quite a few of them in around the town. What I've noticed is, especially where there's been traffic calming measures or speed bumps, that these seem to deteriorate fairly quickly, and I'm wondering if there's anything to be done to make those more resilient and last a bit longer. And then I suppose the other thing is the Mountjoy Gorchin Road, Strathroy Road, and the major scheme that's happening there. Obviously very necessary, but causing a lot of disruption and inconvenience. So just question keeps getting asked: is it going to be finished in time? Is it running smoothly to plan? And how quick can we get that done? Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. With regards to the is it the chevrons up on the Barony Road, the Seven Sisters, that require replacement, or is it an actual vehicle restraint barrier?
No, they are. There's quite a few arrows that are down on that corner. There's an accident that's taken that down.
I see. The chevrons. Now, generally, once they get hit, we do order them fairly quickly, so I can check and see where that is with our signs manufacturer with regards to the chevrons. We do get biannual updates to our system regarding traffic incidents and collisions from the PSNI. We won't have, if it's within the last number of months, I don't think we'll have received an update from the PSNI on that, but I can certainly get the historical traffic collisions along the Barony Road if that's any help at all.
Yeah. Yeah, well, in the last 5 months, there has been, I would say,
Are you on mute there, Rushing, just there for the last 5 or 6 seconds?
Sorry. No, just in the last, say, 5 months, there's probably been possibly 3 cars ended up in the bogland there. And historically, in different parts of that road, there have been. Especially in the last 5 months, there's been an awful lot of accidents on that corner. The reason I know it's because it's just down the road from me, so that's why I'm kind of asking. And the barriers or the arrows are not there, so anybody new to that road, might miss it as well. So I would imagine it would be definitely something that would have to be sorted ASAP.
I'll check with my traffic colleagues to make sure that those are ordered, and hopefully we'll get them in the near future.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
With regards to the condition of roads that are traffic calmed, if the actual bumps or cushions aren't constructed to the correct height, then they do tend to get scuffed by cars, and unfortunately, so they do tend to deteriorate more quickly than ones that are constructed to the correct height. But certainly when we come in to carry out the works in the area, we tend to renew the traffic cushions as well at the same time. So I don't think there's any specific data from our side that would indicate that they deteriorate quicker than the road around them necessarily if they're constructed to the correct standards. With regards to the Gorchin Road, there the works are more or less on programme. The traffic management at the Mountfield Road junction there is programmed to be removed at the end of February, start of March. So hopefully that'll see a little bit of the easing of the congestion at that particular junction. I have to admit the disruption's difficult at the moment for such a significant scheme in such a confined, constrained area with the traffic management that's there. But it will have a significant benefit to road users once it's done, especially for the new schools, and the road will service them well. There's certainly consideration with regards to the use of bus lanes on the newly widened road as well to improve the access to the schools for school children and make it safe for them to travel from there into town. So I think it's definitely a significant improvement to the roads infrastructure on that side of the town, definitely. But as it stands, we're on programme, more or less.
Okay. Bernard, you wanted in on this?
Just a quick one, Chair. Thank you. No, it's just about the time to time when there's heavy snow, the roads are blocked, you know, and I see there you get the help of contractors, including farmers. At some time, you know, do farmers have to be on a list if they want to go out and clear a road, or, you know,
snow clearance?
Snow clearance either. And how do you get on the list? Who do you contact if you wanted to help out? Is there a number that you could Connor's home address maybe, or what?
No, there does be an ad put in the paper every year, the newsletter, Belfast or Irish News. So there'll be added around the late end of the summertime. So we do have a list of contractors now for this year that they provide. There's a schedule of rates, they provide insurances. So it does it comes out every year. So it does. You just can't just jump on anything, unfortunately. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councillors, I want to ask a number of questions, so I'm going to try and time myself here. I'm less than 3 minutes, right? One, just on the A5, Daniel, have you any indications of timeline up ahead? And are you confident that the department has prepared well for the appeal? That's my first question. Second would be just to restate the importance of surfacing of the Kevlin Road, Noma, from the supermarket there at Johnston Park, Anderson Gardens, Cannondale area, on up to Coolnick Yard. And then Campsie, a number of businesses are flooded on occasions there. And I think the solution is awaiting a pump to be designed and installed. So a number of business properties tend to be flooded there. I would support Councillor McColgan there in his emphasis on safety and the completion of that whole scheme at the bottom of Lissanelli Avenue, Old Mountfield Road, Mountjoy, Gorton Road, Strathroy Road, that whole scheme. And then I want to support Councillor Devine Gallagher in her recent lobbying for street lighting in Carrickmore, the Ballantrain Road and Quarry Road. And again, it's a bit like the Erin West councillors emphasising that there's a kind of an active travel dimension to this. You know, street lighting, which would take you on down till Park Columkill, which is used by thousands of people, not even hundreds, on a weekly basis. And then finally, the vacancies, Daniel, 20% vacancies. You know, that's a really important point that you made. What is the department doing by way of a recruitment strategy to recruit staff for the purpose of carrying out the work that needs to be carried out? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. With regards to the A5, obviously there's two potential options here. If the department is successful, then the work can resume in fairly short order. If the department is unsuccessful, then the orders are quashed and the department has to go through the process once again. The department is preparing as well as we possibly can, considering the judgment and addressing some of the issues that the objectors are going to put forward. But essentially, it will come down to the interpretation of the Climate Change Act, and that's going to be essentially it will be what it will be. Certainly, the department will make a very strong argument to try and bring the A5 project forward, and obviously, we as the department and the minister are very hopeful that it will be successful. However, if it is not successful, then the intention is to start again and move forward in whatever way we can to ensure the delivery of such an important scheme. The Kelvin Road condition, is that something?
Yeah.
Yeah, we spoke about the DA meetings. Like at the DA meetings, we received many requests for roads to be resurfaced, and it's basically our list is exhausted now for this year. So next financial year, all schemes or roads that's presented to me, they will all be assessed and prioritised, and what will be successful will be took into next year's programme. So no promise we made at the moment, but it is on what we call a wish list. and it will be competed against other roads to whatever successful.
With regards to the flooding in Campsie, there has been a fair bit of work completed by the department following the implementation of the flood defences in the town to try and establish exactly the reason for the flooding, which wasn't there a number of years ago. And the department has come up with a preferred solution. DFI roads are looking to implement the pumping system, an automated pumping system to replace DFI River's responsive unit that come out to carry out the pumping in that area. So we are hopeful to get a resolution in the not too distant future, but it all depends on the fulsome design of the pumping equipment and the depth of the sump necessary to avoid future flooding of the basements that are below river level adjacent to the river. With regards to street lighting, certainly I think the public and representatives would see a lot of merit in lighting a number of those key community hubs and interchanges such as playing fields and community centres. And I think that will be captured as part of the active travel delivery plan, especially as we want to get people out walking and cycling on these roads. So I think it's imperative that these needs of local rural communities are considered as part of that active travel delivery plan, and that's what it is designed, and the consultation is designed to look to address. With regards to vacancies, the department has actively tried to recruit across a number of technical grades over the past number of years. Every year we have promotion and recruitment competitions, and the sad reality is that as a government department, for civil engineers and engineers in general, we struggle to attract external recruitment people, essentially. It is difficult. We do get some in every year, but obviously doesn't counterbalance the number of people we're losing. The department does have a very clear strategy to try and combat this, and that's through annual staffing recruitment through graduate competitions, through apprentice competitions, and through last year a novel skills academy where we get in school leavers and train them up as roads inspectors, and we're looking to roll that out again this year, and that was quite successful. Obviously, that means that we're getting in an awful lot of new, younger people that perhaps don't have the experience. So we're designing training and qualification pathways for these new staff members, and hopefully we'll start to see the benefits of that. The only thing I would caution is that the department as a whole has a relatively top-heavy age profile, and that it may be a number of years before we're able to level off with the number of and start filling to the full capacity our staffing structure. But there are also a couple, you may have heard of the Mercury program that the department has embarked upon, which is a number of work streams where we're trying to identify efficiencies for the functions that we carry out. So in other words, yes, we have fewer engineers, but perhaps there are functions that the department is carrying out that don't require engineers necessarily to carry out those functions or parts of those functions. So there's a much broader scope of people we can access in a general grade, and we're looking at whether there are things that we can do or that they can do that will release engineers to carry out the critical engineering work that we need to do to keep our roads safe.
Okay, Daniel. Thank you for that. I'm going to go to Councillor Anne-Marie Donnelly now.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks everyone for the interesting debate I suppose we've had this evening, and you have certainly done an awful lot of work in the last year, and in certainly in my own area. Conor and his team have been really good to work with and have been very quick to respond to any queries, which is great. Just want to raise a couple of things, and they're actually in Oma, but it's the white lines between the Johnson King roundabout and the right turn into the business complex near the test centre are nearly gone. And there's a waiting bay there in the middle for traffic to turn right. And then there's another additional lane there going towards the roundabout where it breaks into two lanes. It's nearly gone altogether. And I have myself witnessed traffic having near misses there. And that's just, I don't know how many accidents have already happened, but that's certainly an accident waiting to happen. And then the other thing is then coming from the Dromore Road, from the coach inside in Oma, the filter arrow towards going into Lidl, there is no filter arrow, and traffic are taking chances there regularly, driving across in front of other cars, driving across through red lights, because there's no way for the traffic from the Dromore side to turn right into Lidl, and that is a big issue because the volume of traffic coming through there, they're not being served with the traffic lights, and people don't let people across there because they don't realise there's no filter. So if those couple of things could be addressed, I'd really appreciate that. Thank you.
Just checking, Roisin, your hand's still up. Is it there for a reason? You want to take your hand down, please? Thank you. So Anne-Marie's questions, Daniel, please.
Yeah. Thank you. The white lines at the Johnson King roundabout in that area is on our schedule to be white lined. So hopefully that'll be completed when the contractor and weather conditions permit. The filter arrow on the traffic lights at the access to Lidl there, we can certainly look at the traffic flows in that area. It would have been considered as part of the planning permission. So things may have become busier at this stage if it's not there. So we can certainly have my traffic manager or my traffic section look at whether a filter arrow there would be beneficial to traffic flow and safety.
Okay. 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 Just on the Kevlin Road, Conor, I want to say the following. It's very important. Cannondale, Sunningdale, Cannon Hill, Kevlin Gardens, Glen, Grove, Coolnagard. Coolnagard is 400 houses alone. There is no road out to the Dromore Road. So the Kevlin Road is unique. One way in, one way out at this time. And there's as many people living on the Kevlin Road in Oma as there is in a small town. So the Kevlin Road, I would like to think, will progress beyond a wish list and into an action list, as soon as possible, because of the intense residential nature of that road, and one way in and no way out, other than the Kevlin Road itself. And I'm just wondering, is there any prospect of the completion of the through road to the Dromore Road? It was always our understanding that with 400 houses plus in Coolnagard, that should any more houses be built, that the completion of that through road to the Dromore Road would take place. Is that in the pipeline? Is that so? Just maybe get a reply to that if you don't mind. This is a great opportunity to get these questions answered.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, I believe that forms part of the planning permission for further development of that area. So it is part. If any further development does proceed, then that becomes part of the conditions to allow it.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to come to Councillor Barton in a wee second, but just another thing, Daniel, that you'd be familiar with is we've been lobbying for maybe a 2-hour waiting period in Oma, as distinct from a 1-hour period. We've had meetings with businesses. Some businesses are so specific in nature that the 1-hour restriction, is not viable at all. Now, it's my understanding that DFI may be trialling a 1-hour grace period regarding parking in Lisburn and Newry, a pilot. and I could be wrong about this now, but it might be starting in December and January of 25 and 26. So can that be introduced in Oma as soon as possible? And I'm sure there's a case to be made for it in other settlements or villages or towns in the district. Over to you, Daniel, if you don't mind.
Yeah, we received confirmation of the Chamber of Commerce acceptance of the 2-hour last week, I believe. So we're moving forward to legislate for the 2 hours and no return in 2 hours within all of the Oma area. I'm not aware of the pilot. It may be, you mentioned in Lisbon, it may be a Christmas temporary pilot, but I can certainly look into it and see if it's if it would be applicable to other areas.
And Daniel, could you tell me the timeline then for completion of that 2-hour process in Oma? We'd welcome that very, very much.
The legislative process requires a consultation to be carried out initially, and then we look to address any objections to it. And following that, then it's legislated for through our headquarters, which have a long list of legislative responsibilities. Generally, these days, we generally say it's probably not going to happen any sooner than about 8 months.
Okay, thank you. So go now to Councillor Barton.
Thank you, Chair. Just one or two follow-up questions.
I'm going to allow members to do that. If any member wants to return to the debate, just indicate, and I'll give you a minute or so if you don't mind.
Okay.
Thank you.
Firstly, a follow-on from Barry. You spoke of the 2 hours in the Oma area that you were looking at. Do you mean the Fermanagh Oma Council area, or do you just mean Oma and not Enniskillen?
As far as I'm aware, we've only been approached in Oma for the 2 hours. I mean, we'd need to get approached by other local.
No, I just asked for
information.
Okay, thank you. And the white lines, they've been mentioned tonight. I think part of the problem with white lines is contractors. I see it in my local area. Contractors not fulfilling their contract. There's an lack, as I said, was tarred the other last week. White lines on it, wonderful. There's another spot up the road which was contractor led, and a year has passed and we're still waiting on white lines. So I think it might be worth looking at contractors. And the last thing, what is the problem with recruitment? I know you mentioned it, but why are young people not interested in engineering anymore or recruiting to road service or DFI? Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. From a recruitment point of view, it's the young people we are getting in. It's experienced engineers that we tend to struggle to get into the department. And to be fair, the primary driver of that would be wages. The private sector is currently offering more to qualified engineers than we are able within the structure that we have. With regards to the white line and contractors, generally, after a piece of resurfacing is completed, it'll be white lined by the contractor who carries out that work or his subcontractor. So if there's an area that isn't, we can certainly chase up on contractors who don't do that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Rainey.
Thank you, Chair. Roadside trees that's deemed dangerous by the tree surgeon. Who's responsible if they are deemed dangerous to a local resident, an elderly lady that can't sleep in her bed? Who does it belong to? So it seems to be tricky, is it?
The department is developing a tree strategy for the network. Obviously, if our inspectors see a tree in distress or going to fall on the road, it's a safety issue and we can take it down. However, the responsibility for trees and hedgerows that sit within the hedge of bounding the carriageway are the responsibility of the landowners. That said, we do contact and we put advertisements in all papers every year to remind landowners of their responsibilities with regards to overhanging trees and the condition and keeping our roads safe. But as I say, the department is developing a strategy that would allow us to actively go out with qualified tree surgeons and run certainly all our trunk roads and our main roads to ensure that we have a clear indication of which trees are in a poor condition and pose a safety to the travelling public. So we are actively progressing that. As it stands, our inspectors are mostly looking down, in fairness to them, at drainage and potholes and road condition. And they're not qualified to identify trees that perhaps look relatively healthy but pose a danger. So that's a gap that we're looking, and many local authorities are looking to bridge.
Have you anyone that would likely to pass judgment on a particular issue for me?
I mean, we can put members of the public in touch with the contractors that we use to take down trees. But we generally, unless it's one of our trees, unless it's within the road, DFI road.
The lady believes it is, it's outside her curtilage.
Well, if it's within our property, then it's our responsibility to ensure that it's safe and take it down if that's what's required. So if you can contact.
Generally, in rural country roads, we are not responsible for trees. Where we jump in is at times of storms, where the priority is to get the road opened again. So a stay, the B's and C's, U-class roads are lower priority because in U-class roads there's always a rat race around it. But once we get the roads open again, it is back with the landowner. It's their responsibility to look after the tree. But generally in the rural roads, we don't own trees unless there's an embankment or where a road might have been formed in the last 20 years, where there might be side slopes where we would own the trees then. But in rural roads where it's only a ditch, we wouldn't be responsible for trees there. But
I know that Councillor Rainey is going to have a specific conversation with you, Conor, about that, just to nail that down.
no, that's grand. Give me a shout in here. We can take a look at it and give me your thoughts.
Councillor Feely.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'll be brief. Yeah, that's a good question from Alan there. It's a big issue in the rural areas. I'm landowner myself, so I know the whole issues of it. No, I was just, and you touched on it yourself too, Barry, about extra seat lighting, and you said that it'd have to be exceptional circumstances to get them. Daniel, so I just wonder what really do you mean by that? What would the circumstances be? And I just want to chat Brian at the end about a wee thing after, it was okay.
Yeah. To be fair, I haven't come across an exceptional circumstance in my time in my current post, and the guidance that we have leaves it relatively open as what can be defined as exceptional circumstances. But generally, what it refers to is if lighting a junction would reduce the severity or instance of collisions. So we can look to light a particularly bad junction where there have been a number of collisions, or we can look to light an area that we are instructed to light by the minister, and that's something that happened in Gavahi.
Okay, thank you. And Daniel, it's come to the fore a lot recently. I would imagine the department should be factoring in the whole Ending Violence Against Women and Girls campaign. So if there was an issue of safety or perceived safety in a walking route, you know, I think that would amount to exceptional circumstances. But we're going to bring this section of the meeting to a close shortly. I passed a note to Conor during the meeting about the recurrence of flooding at the rear of Sperrin Park and Lismore Lane, but I'm happy with that. Conor would get back to me on that in writing in due course. Maybe just check on it if there's serious flooding or rain tonight, if there is. And also that wee part of the surface near the Loreto Grammar School at the end of James Street with the fold there and modern tires. You know, who owns that and why is it in such a bad shape for years and years and years? Is it a contested ground or what? It was just raised with me this evening by a lady in the Tamlet Road who works in the Loreto. She said it's really bad condition historically. Historically, it's as if there's some sort of contest about who owns it or something. But I would welcome DFI's position in writing on that as soon as possible. Thank you. So, members, I'm about to move on here till item 4 on your agenda, And I'll ask John Hughes, our director, if there's any correspondence.
No, Chair, no correspondence this evening.
Okay, thank you. And I just got clarification, Daniel, about the Newry in Lisburn. It is a seasonal festive trialing in both of those places. But that's that. Now, no one has written to me in advance with any urgent and relevant business. That means no one shall be heard on these matters.